Hi everybody, this is Kurt, and today we're going to do NeoFly qualifications. This part of the program is about getting the licenses to fly different planes and getting the little stars to get increases in your pay and in your experience. You get bonuses for the more stars you have for a particular category. So before I get into that, though, what I wanted to talk about is one of the most common problems people have with NeoFly is they get confused about the airplane. For instance, if you've got an airplane with multiple liveries and you pick the wrong one, it's not going to be happy with it. So when you start the mission, it'll tell you which one you need. In this case, it just says Pitts Asobo, which is the name of the plane and the livery for the regular red Asobo Pitts biplane. And most of the other livery names, it would have more detail here. So what'll happen is when you go to, I've already got this mission selected. So if I go to hangar, you can see we've got it here, and it gives you the plane in your hangar that you need to put your guy in. This is also one of the things people get hung up on is it doesn't automatically put you into the new plane. So add your guy to the plane, and at that point you're ready to go in. But when you go to the flight screen, you can see I've got the right location, but the airplane's red. Well, that's odd, right? Because here we are in our pits. Well, it's not the right pits. It's the wrong livery. So NeoFly really does care about that, and it won't let you fly it. So always check to see what's going on there. If you don't hear the voice come on and welcome you to the mission or whatever, or if you see red in the here, that's an indicator that you've got something wrong. So in this case, we've got the wrong plane. There's two ways you can fix this, and it works for the location. You can either go out to the main menu and go find the correct one, or if you know exactly which one you're looking for, and you're comfortable doing it, you can just go into the developer menu over here and then you can go to tools and use the aircraft selector right here. If you're at the wrong airport, you can use teleport window too to teleport to the. I don't like to use that one because you never know really where it's going to put you at the airport, and sometimes it doesn't load correctly. So we know we want the Pitts of Sobo, so that's this one. Double click that, it'll load the correct plane. If you don't want to stay in dev mode, you can just exit right here. Mode and then tell it here to go back, don't apply save, and that'll set this back to off. Dev mode stuff goes away. Now we're in the correct plane, which it's decided is running now for some reason, but that's Microsoft. Anyhow, and when we get back into the plane, and if I pull up NeoFly, you'll see it's turned green here. It's happy with this plane. So that's a quick way to fix that. It's complaining that the weight's not exactly right, but it won't stop you from flying the mission based on that. Anyhow, at this point, I'm going to cut over to the plane I actually used for the certification, which was a little more sensible than a Pitts, and we'll continue from there. Okay, I've moved us over to a location to do the certification to try and get that extra star on our qualification. One of the things that's going to happen here is, and this is unusual, it's because of this airport. Normally it tells you to take off and climb to 1,000 feet. She's going to tell me I'm at my altitude a little bit early, and I think it's because the terrain drops away, which is unusual. But that is a little thing that's going to mess me up a little bit here as I start the training. So don't get distracted too much by that. When you do the startup, you want to make sure that you have your beacon light on at the minimum before you start the engine. She'll ding you a little bit for that.
Now that the engine is running, taxi to the runway. Don't exceed 25 knots while taxiing.
So what you can do here is put the landing lights on before you get to the runway. It does two things. It keeps you from forgetting to do it before you take off, and it keeps her from thinking that you're taxiing.
Align with the runway and take off.
Uh, so you see, I switched that on right there, and she immediately said align with the runway and take off because she assumes we're over there. But what that does is it prevents you having to deal with the problem of taxiing too fast, and it also makes sure that you don't forget, because if you leave the landing light off during your takeoff roll, she's going to nail you for taxi too fast. Things to remember to do here is once you get on the runway, make a note of the heading that you're at on the runway, and make a note of your altitude, because she's going to want you 1,000 feet above the field altitude, and she's going to want you, you're going to be referring to your original heading a lot. So what I usually do is as soon as I get on the runway, I set my heading bug. So set your heading bug to the runway heading, and you'll refer to that a bit, and just take off as you normally would. You can see in there, I've set the climb altitude to 2,700 because I was expecting her to give me 2,700 since we're taking off from 17, but it didn't work out that way. So that's why right after takeoff, you're going to see me fighting with a few things. I also turned off the live weather because it was extremely gusty and I just didn't feel like dealing with it.
We are now in the air. Remember that here at NeoFly, we have to take care of our cargo and passengers. Don't bank or pitch too much for the entire flight. Now, climb to 1,000 feet AGL.
She says don't bank or pitch too much, which isn't very helpful. Basically, keep it under 30 degrees. I think she will allow you to go to 45, but there's really no reason to.
Now do a U-turn. Remember to watch your bank angle.
So normally she would have called that out when we were 1,000 feet up. This time it came early, which all you need to do is make a note of the altitude she's got you at now and do a 180 from where you're at. So in this case, the runway is north-south, so basically I'm just going to make a turn to 183 roughly. But I'm fighting with I want to use the autopilot for this, since I know that's how most people are going to do it anyway. So I'm just trying to get everything settled before I start that. And now I'm just using the heading bug to make the turn.
Now climb to 3,000 feet AGL. Maintain the same heading.
So since we're already at, or would normally be at 1,000 feet AGL, you just want to add 2 to wherever you're at and stay on your current heading. Actually, I did 3 there for some reason, but she'll catch it when we get up there anyway. Anyhow, engage FLC or whatever your preferred climb method is and get it going. Once we get to that altitude, she's going to ask us to do a 360 degree turn. So it's the same as the 180. You can go left or right, whatever makes you happy. And I just use, once I get there and the heading is stabilized, or the altitude is stabilized, just use the heading bug to make the turn.
Now, fly a complete circle and maintain the exact same altitude.
So since I set the wrong altitude before, she caught me off guard here, so I'm taking a second to get everything settled before I start my turn. She usually doesn't complain too much as long as you stay on the heading you were on until you start your turn. So once I get that all settled down,
Now go back to the departure airport. Align with the runway and do a touch and go. A landing vertical speed of more than minus 400 feet per minute will not allow you to pass the qualification.
okay, so that's the rules basically. If you touch down at more than 400 feet per minute, you're gonna fail, but anything less than that is fine. But you want to get it as soft as you can. Really try to get a greaser to get the star. I ended up deciding I was way too high. Didn't want to try and dive bomb it and pick up a bunch of speed, so I made a 360 here just to lose some altitude.
Well done. You can now fly a traffic pattern and do your final landing.
Every time on the touch and go, I forget that I'm supposed to go around. I always like land, and then I'm waiting for her to tell me I did good, and she doesn't. And I roll 1,000 feet, and then I realize I'm supposed to take off again, which is exactly what I did there. Anyhow, at this point, all you gotta do is land safely and stick with the banking rule. Don't overbank it. But you don't need to fly a legit pattern or anything. Just land on the runway, and at that point you're done. So that touch and go was the only thing that counts to the stars. This landing doesn't matter, other than that you don't crash. And of course, because it doesn't matter, it's if you look at the log, it'll always be your better landing. It's so funny. You'll always you'll always touch down with about half the speed on your final touchdown, just because you're not thinking about it.
Well done. Now taxi to parking and shut down your engine.
You can just shut down on the runway if you want. There's really no requirement that you actually go all the way back to parking. Since it's probably not your plane anyways, you might as well just save your time, get it stopped. But I think I ended up pulling at least onto the taxiway here. I floated all the way down the runway because I came in a little too fast. So not really great piloting there, but she doesn't care about this landing at all as long as you don't crash. So important to remember, it's not over until you shut the engine down. So don't just drop out of the game. Yeah, see, I'm here. I'm showing you 113 feet per minute on my touch and go, and I think it was about half that on my final. Yeah, 59 feet per minute on my final landing. That's what I was telling you about. It's always like that. Anyhow, that's the whole process, and that's how you get your stars in the qualifications for NeoFly. So that's it for today. Thanks for watching, and we'll catch you next time.